I don't trust myself to put it up here. I'd knock it over, I'm sure. Thank you to the members of the Atlantic Institute for this gracious honor, and particularly to those whom I am honored to call my friends. You know, in comparing and contrasting the missions and goals of our respective organizations, there's a remarkable similarity. The stated goal of the Atlantic Institute Jacksonville is to facilitate dialogue and bridge cultures from multiple regions of the world. And in order to reach a greater understanding and acceptance of cultures, it is necessary to embrace diversity and build tolerance for differing beliefs, traditions, and opinions. By comparison, WJCT's stated mission is to use its unique assets as a resource for citizens to come together to celebrate human diversity, experience lifelong learning, and actively engage with matters of civic importance, all to improve the quality of our lives and that of our community. Given what we hear and read day in and day out, I suspect, I know, that there is a frustration within our organizations about the ability to actually change hardened attitudes. I'd like to share with you a ray of hope. I received an email just before the beginning of this year, and it goes, I'm going to read for you just a couple of the paragraphs. Dear Mr. Boylan, I have included your response to my ignorance from October 29th, 2010. And thankfully, I have changed my heart and my mind in the views I expressed to you. I am so sorry that I was closed-minded and downright hateful in my opinions of WJCT for sharing Islamic, Muslim views and documentaries. I understand now that these are a means of educating all of us, and I'm seeing things from a different point of view today. Obviously, I was not then, nor am I now, qualified to determine what should be shared on WJCT. She goes on then to share a little bit about her favorite programs and why she supports us. But she closes with this. I have reread your email reply to me many, many times over the past 5 years. And each time I have found myself to be in more agreement with you, your dedication to providing informative, educational, and thought-provoking programs to the First Coast. I cannot begin to tell you how your email affected me. I hate that it took me so long to respond. Seems my head is harder than my heart. I can honestly say that today I would stand beside or behind you in all that you do in providing sound programming for our community. Thank you, Mr. Boylan. So there is hope. Please continue to do what you do, and I can assure you WJCT will do the same. Thank you.
Michael, I hope you're taking notes and that Ken's new documentary will be on your station. Because it's the only PBS station I watch, shameless plug. Okay. Our next award is the Educational Service Award. This individual has held leadership roles at institutions that promote education. The individual has distinguished themselves by generously promoting and contributing their time, energy, expertise, leadership, and dedication in order to inspire a love of learning. Well, I can tell you, while this individual is not in the traditional sense an educator, she is definitely an educator. Terry Florio serves as the executive director of the Malavi Washington Youth Foundation. She has held this position since the foundation began active programming in 1997. Terry has more than 25 years in management experience, primarily in special events and professional sporting activities. She also worked on the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. So as I said, she's not a traditional educator, but an educator nonetheless. Please join me and Parvez Ahmad as we present the 2016 Educational Service Award to Terry Florio.
Thank you all very much, and thanks to the Atlantic Institute as well. I don't really feel like I should be up here with Ms. Crystal and Michael, who I've known a long time. But honestly, I love children, and I love all children. And the thing about children is they don't see race, they don't see religion, they don't see color. All they see is love and acceptance. That's all they want. And if the rest of the world could be a little bit more like that, and like many of the people in this room, obviously, it would probably be a better place. So thank you all very much for this honor, and I really do appreciate it.
Let's give all of our winners a grand round of applause. These are the individuals that truly are working to make Jacksonville a better place. Well, it's come. It's time. I'm excited. Okay, I have to do something. Take out your phones. Take out your phone. Come on. Take out your phones and put them away. Okay? We cannot take photographs. You cannot take videos. We're turning the videography off. Okay? Out of respect for Mr. Burns and his work, this work is being previewed here tonight, so we can't take it out of this room. You can tell your friends about it. You can tell them that you got the first look at it, but you can't show them anything. There will be no photos, no videos permitted during his presentation. The Atlantic Institute will put photos of tonight's event on the website, so you can capture it there. Now, it is my pleasure to bring one of our co-chairs, Nancy Cable, back to the podium so that she can introduce our presenter this evening, none other than Ken Burns.
Oh my goodness, I really do stand between you and Ken Burns. Just a few remarks to set a context for what a national treasure we have with us this evening. It is such a special time to be in a room with so many leading citizens in the Jacksonville community. I have had the honor and privilege to serve as co-chair of this evening's event with my friend and my colleague, Parvez Ahmad, who quite frankly has truly been the mover and shaker not only of the Atlantic Institute, but of all that we are benefiting from this evening. Would you join me one more time in thanking Parvez and our dinner committee for the joy of being together as one tonight in Jacksonville? I also have the privilege of serving as the president and chair of the Board of Trustees for the Better Angels Society, a group that supports Ken Burns' work as the singularly distinct and prodigious filmmaker of this generation. We invite investment in Ken's current films. We support the educational distribution of those films, and the emerging projects that will create Ken's legacy in support of young documentary filmmakers, not just in the United States, but across the globe. Ken Burns, our national treasure, has been making documentary films for almost 40 years. Ken was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1953. You can do the math. He's still very young. He graduated from Hampshire College in Amherst, Massachusetts in 1975 and went on to begin his very distinguished career by the first film of the Brooklyn Bridge and co-founded Florentine Films, which is still his company. Since the Academy Award-nominated Brooklyn Bridge in 1981, Ken has gone on to direct and produce some of the most acclaimed historical documentaries ever made. Let me give you a sample of what you will see in small snippets tonight. Baseball, jazz, the Statue of Liberty, Huey Long, Lewis and Clark, Frank Lloyd Wright, Mark Twain, Unforgivable Blackness, the rise and fall of Jack Johnson, The War, the National Parks, America's Best Idea, the Roosevelts, an intimate portrait and history, and most recently, Cancer, the Emperor of All Maladies. The Arthur Vining Davis Foundation, based here in Jacksonville, for which I currently serve as president, and every day try to fill the very big shoes of Admiral Jonathan Howe, who is here, who was 19 years at the helm of this foundation. We support each of these films and have given nearly $10 million to Ken's work over the last 30 years, and proud of every dollar we've invested in his genius. We, as a national foundation, so to speak, have been Ken's key partner as a foundation, but we've been joined by the Bank of America and General Motors in allowing Ken to tell America's stories and to make sure that every classroom and every school system in the United States and across America have access to Ken's extraordinary body of films and educational history. The accolades for Ken's work are plentiful. I want to share just a couple with you to frame the way in which Ken is deeply respected and admired and even cherished in the ways that he has provided us with an understanding of ourselves, our potential, and our truth as citizens of the United States. David Zararick of the Baltimore Sun said, and I quote, "Burns is not only the greatest documentarian of the day, but also the most influential filmmaker of the period. This includes feature filmmakers like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. I say this because Burns not only turned millions of persons onto history with his films, he showed us a new way of looking at our collective past and the potential of ourselves. The late historian Stephen Ambrose said of Ken Burns, quote, "More Americans get their history from Ken Burns than from any other source." No small feat. Ken's films have won 14 Emmy Awards, 2 Oscar nominations, and in September 2008, at the new Documentary Emmy Awards, Ken was honored with the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Lifetime Achievement Award. Ken's work portrays well the themes of race and place in the human experience, and watching a Ken Burns documentary awakens in all of us a profound sense in the American spirit, a spirit of inclusiveness, a spirit of a willingness to encounter the other, and to help us understand what our democracy can truly believe in the spirit of a hope. It is my honor now to introduce to you my friend and my colleague, Ken Burns. Ken.
We are a very fortunate country. Unlike most countries, we know exactly when we were born. We know the day that it took place. We knew where it took place. It was 1776, July 4th, in Philadelphia. We know what our catechism is. We were defined by a single sentence, the second sentence of the Declaration. It begins, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, I have to stop about a third of the way through that sentence to remind you that the man who wrote that sentence owned more than 100 human beings, did not in his lifetime see the hypocrisy or the contradiction, and more importantly, never in his lifetime saw fit to free any of those human beings, and set in motion an American narrative that would be always schizophrenically operating with the understanding that race would be a central, if unspoken, condition. During our Constitutional Convention, a man named John J. Chapman wrote, "There was never a moment when slavery was not a sleeping serpent. It lay coiled under the table during the deliberations of the Constitutional Convention. Thereafter, slavery was on everyone's mind, if not always on his tongue." We focus very often on the great political freedoms that defined us. We forget to understand how important the religious freedoms were as well. That people could come to this country, and unlike any country on earth, they could worship as they saw fit. And over the decades, America has been an extraordinary place for that. But it's also been a place where those early pilgrims who, escaping persecution in Europe, established the Massachusetts Bay Colony, only to drive from that colony Anne Hutchinson and Roger Williams and others who had only the slightest variation in religious beliefs from them. And so set in motion a parallel schizophrenic American narrative that also deals with an intolerance and exclusion of people that not only don't think like us politically, but don't worship like us. And so we have been beset at every corner. Shortly after we finished the Civil War series, and it was broadcast in September of 1990, I had the opportunity to speak in Wilmington, Delaware, near the small town that I had spent half of my childhood in. And I was speaking at an event with many, many people. And in the question and answer period, a young girl of about 12 stood up and sort of surprised us all, including me, by saying, "What is racism?" And I said that I thought that it was the horrible flip side of a very understandable human emotion, which was love of one's own. And when that love metastasizes, it becomes something else. It becomes a suspicion of the other. It becomes a way to forget the fact that we are all connected, forget to subscribe to what Abraham Lincoln in his plea just before the Civil War to respond to the better angels of our nature. You know, this is the month of February. It is our coldest and shortest month. Into that month, we put African American history. Now, I know why February is African American History Month, but I also do believe that it is interesting that we segregate it to this coldest and shortest month, as if it is some politically correct addendum to our national narrative, and not, as it turns out to be, the burning heart of our story. So often in my work, whether I have wanted to or not, I have been brought up with these parallel universes, these contradictions of American life, and have felt honor-bound to deal with it. You know, we are so dialectically preoccupied these days. Everything is either red state or blue state. It's white or black. It's young or old. It's rich or poor. It's male or female. It's gay or straight. It's north or south. It's east or west. We are so good at finding the divisions between each other that we forget to select what we share in common. How refreshing it is that we gather this evening doing just that, that we understand that we look differently from each other, we pray differently from each other, we have different backgrounds and experiences, but we are all joined, we suspect, by some invisible thread, something that connects us. We've tried in our films not to throw out the old and heroic top-down story of the history of the United States, the so-called history of the state, of presidential administrations punctuated by wars. But we have also tried to include a bottom-up one that is interested in looking at the power of history by understanding how complex our history is, by being unafraid of controversy and tragedy, but equally drawn to those stories and moments that suggest an abiding faith in the human spirit, and particularly the unique role this remarkable, but also sometimes dysfunctional republic seems to play in the positive progress of mankind. That, quite simply, ladies and gentlemen, has been my creed, my mantra, the ability and the trust and the hope that history is a table around which we can still have a civil discourse, in which we can be reminded of not only the difficulties in our history, but the ways in which the United States has led and not followed. And it is that history that I am most interested in isolating and putting in stark relief. But it would be completely dishonest if I did not also portray the way in which we have continually failed that promise. And it is heartening to me, for someone who lives in a tiny town in rural New Hampshire and works alone and is often beset by people who do not think that the topics I pick are worthy of this great republic, to know that there are people so many hundreds of miles away who share my same great wish and hope for this republic. Thank you for including me in your evening.
Ken, thank you. Thank you for showing us who we are and what we can be. Thank you for making history alive for us and not just fairy tales. We appreciate the work that you do. And if Tehran could join me up here. We want you to remember Jacksonville. And Ken, if you could also join us up here. I'm getting my special moments. It's right here. We want you to remember Jacksonville, and we hope that you'll find a place in your home or your office to portray this small token of the evening that you've given us. Thank you.
It looks like a piece of ceramic clay, but it's more than that. It carries our love and memory of this tonight to Ken, to remind us tonight forever to him. And you know, Nancy, I'm actually good at math. I did my math, and you're right. And I pray and wish God to give long life and healthy life and fruitful, productive life to Ken, to tell us more untold stories for forever for our young generations. And we hope 2021 to hear the untold stories of peace builders, nonviolent peace building in our society. We acknowledge and understand and honor with their honor of medals of not for war, honor of medals for peace, to make them distinguished role model for our next generations. And thank you, and congratulations.
Well, I have a few shameless plugs. On your table should be some information regarding upcoming events sponsored by the Atlantic Institute on Sunday, February 28th at the University Center at 4 p.m. We have Peace in the Middle East, Inspiring Voices and Stories, Faith Leaders and Millennial Change Makers. It's a panel discussion. We hope that you'll put that date on your calendar. And on May 14th, Saturday, at 2:30 p.m., the Language and Culture Festival will be at the Times Union Center. So look for those two. And before you leave tonight, we want you to do something for us. Our theme for this evening was Encounter the Other. I'd ask everyone in the room to close your eyes for just one moment. Close your eyes. When you think of the phrase, my people, what do you see? Do you see people of only your race and your ethnicity? Or do you see your neighbors, your coworkers, the person on the street, everyone that you encounter in this city? Do you see that there is no other, but the others are one? There are varying colors, there are varying ethnicities, there are various backgrounds, various sizes. Build a world of mutual understanding, trust, harmony, and a world of peace. Open your eyes, and that's what we want to work for. Now, the evening has been long, but it's been beautiful. And I'm going to ask Tara Trueblood to join me on the podium to deliver our benediction. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We hope you've had a wonderful, wonderful experience.
I realize I'm standing between you and your warm bed. So after all that we have experienced together, I think I'm going to need your help with the benediction. Would you be willing? Come on. All right, good. So when I say humans of Jacksonville, would you say, these are our people? Let's try it. Humans of Jacksonville. These are our people. Oh my gosh, you're going to be great. All right. So here we go. We arrive tonight as strangers to encounter the other. From atheist to AME, business people to Buddhist, Catholic to cab driver, European to evangelical, humans of Jacksonville. From Danish to doctor, Floridian to filmmaker, grocers to Greeks, Hindu to higher ed, humans of Jacksonville. Yes. From Indian to Italian, Jewish to journalist, Korean to kindergarten teacher, Latino and Latina to LGBT and QIA, humans of Jacksonville. From Mormons to Muslims, nurse to neo-pagan, politician to Presbyterian, Sikh to scientist, humanist of Jacksonville, humans of Jacksonville. And finally, from student to senior, Turkish to Tunisian, veteran to vegan, Zimbabwean, but certainly not xenophobian, humans of Jacksonville. Thanks and good night, everybody.